Are we in a bubble? We need to understand what a real estate bubble actually is. We've seen this at play in different parts of the world. Japan in the 1990s, the US in 2008, and also China is currently experiencing some issues. But then, what's up with Ghana? Are we seeing similar patterns, or could we be next? Every boom in the marketplace carries a question. Is it real growth or is it just an illusion? And are we watching a steady climb or a dangerous rise before a fall? Ghana's real estate market is buzzing, and you'll hear it from the lips of many professionals in the space. And property prices are climbing. We have new developments going up very, very quickly, and investors are also pouring in a lot of money into the properties like never before. But under all this excitement, there's a lingering concern that a lot of people are having lately. How long can this last? Is this demand truly sustainable, or are we in a bubble that is waiting to burst? Today, we explore the state of Ghana's real estate market to find out what's really driving all these rising prices and also the implications we should look out for. Are we on solid ground, or is there a risk of a slowdown? And most importantly, what does this mean for buyers, investors, and also property developers? Let's get into it. But before we get deep into today's topic, we need to understand what a real estate bubble actually is. Now, a bubble happens when property prices rise rapidly beyond their true value, and this happens not because of real demand of properties, but then because of speculation. And prices go up when there's a lot of speculation in the market, and people end up buying property not because they need a roof over their head, but then because they believe that prices will keep going up, which will allow them to sell their properties later at a profit. Now, this cycle can go on for quite a while, but then it's something that doesn't last forever. And at some point, demand will slow down and prices will stop rising, and then investors may panic, and suddenly the market crashes. We've seen this at play in different parts of the world. Japan in the 1990s, the US in 2008, and also China is currently experiencing some issues. But then, what's up with Ghana? Are we seeing similar patterns, or could we be next? Let's look at some reasons why property prices in Ghana are so high. Now, buying a home in Ghana, especially in Accra, has become a very expensive venture, and prices in prime areas normally rival those in major global cities. Just hop on social media and just search randomly for some real estate related topics, and I'm sure you'll find some discussions about how properties in Ghana are very expensive with comparisons to states in the US and all that. But then, why is this happening? Several factors are at play here, and I'd like us to look at them. Number one, there's the issue of land supply and ownership. And we all know that land ownership in Ghana is generally a complex issue, where some lands are controlled by chiefs and traditional authorities, and then others are controlled by the government, and also private owners hold the rest of the lands. Unfortunately, the system we have makes it quite a bit of a challenge and also very expensive, especially in prime locations to own land. So developers end up passing on all these high costs to buyers, which in turn drives up the prices of properties. Another major factor is the cost of construction. Now, many building materials are imported, and apart from cement, we don't really produce much. And by this, I mean indigenous Ghanaian companies manufacturing building materials and products. Now, there are many suppliers, but then there are not so many producers. With the Ghana cedi fluctuating against major currencies, these imports become more expensive over time. And when you add the rising labor cost to this as well, you'd realize that it becomes quite clear why developers struggle to keep the prices of properties very low. And it's a hard question as to if we can truly build affordable homes in Ghana at the moment, but then hopefully the times ahead and also some government interventions will make this more of a thing of the past. There's also the influence of foreign and diaspora buyers, which can be quite disruptive to the Ghanaian buyer, though it's unavoidable. And many Ghanaians who are living abroad often see real estate as a very safe and creative investment. And instead of them keeping their monies in foreign bank accounts, they would rather buy homes back in Ghana. and often they end up buying at a premium. Foreign investors looking for opportunities in West Africa also pour money into the market, making it more competitive for both developers and also those who are on the hands for some good deals. Now, the challenge here is that while external demand is high, the average Ghanaian buyer struggles to afford these homes. And if external demand is high and there's good cash flow, there's almost no incentive for developers to offer relatively cheaper options when they can target the upper end of the market and also end up making some good profits. Now, it's very unfortunate, but then this is what we have to deal with. Another key factor is the role of real estate as a wealth storage tool. Now, by this, some buyers are not buying properties because they need a place to live or they need somewhere to crash. No, they're simply looking for a place to park their money. And unlike stocks or investments in other businesses, some people see real estate as a stable and a tangible asset that will hold its value over time. So when you have more people who are buying homes purely for investment purposes, it drives up the prices of properties. Reason being that they're not buying the properties to live in, but then their judgments are purely logical and there's no emotional attachment in there. And the properties that normally end up going for give a sense of demand for those properties in the market. And as demand goes up, the prices of this property go up, sometimes beyond what the market can truly sustain. This is an issue, but then some way, somehow, is one of the things that we have to deal with. So then, are we in a bubble? Well, the answer depends on which part of the market we're looking at. Ghana's real estate market is quite diverse, and the different sectors are experiencing different trends. Now, take the luxury market, for example. When you look at the prime locations across the capital, places like Laboni, Cantonment, and Airport Residential Area, prices in these areas keep going up, but then how many fellow Ghanaians can actually afford to buy houses in these areas? If the pool of buyers, end up drying up, developers may end up also struggling to sell out their projects, and this could lead to price adjustments and also some correction in the market. And on the other hand, the mid-range and affordable housing market tell a different story than what the upper end of the market is saying. Middle income earners in Ghana still need housing, but then affordability remains a critical issue. And the demand is as high as ever, but then we have a housing deficit and we have also a serious issue with the supply of affordable housing. Now, the affordable housing market is often an afterthought and is just thrown around in discussions, but then we're not seeing a slowdown in the uptick of property prices. And if property prices continue to rise faster than salaries, well, demand in this segment could slow down as well. The rental market also gives us some clues to pick up on. Despite the high property prices, rental demand remains very strong, particularly in urban areas. And this suggests that housing is still very much needed, but then more people are shifting towards renting instead of buying for the long term. But on the side, one thing that sets Ghana apart from many other markets is that most of the real estate transactions here are not driven by credit, in that most people prefer to pay cash instead of taking a mortgage. Unlike in the US or China or even in Europe, the real estate bubble can burst when homeowners end up defaulting on mortgages, which will end up forcing the banks to sell the properties to make up for the losses. But then the market here in Ghana is largely cash based, and you end up seeing a case where buyers prefer to pay outright or end up probably settling for payment plans that are arranged with the developers. Now, this means that even if the demand slows down, there's not going to be any wave of mortgage defaults or foreclosures, which will end up triggering a price collapse. And instead of a dramatic crash, the market is more likely to experience some form of price stagnation and also some gradual corrections in the areas where the demand ends up being weak. To be able to judge if we're in a bubble or close to one, there are some warning signs that we should look out for. Now, one major red flag would be an increase in the unsold properties on the market that are just sitting there empty. And if property developers end up struggling to find buyers and houses remain empty for a long time, it could be a signal that prices are way too high relative to the demand on the market. And when you see this happening, you can almost be certain that there's a market slowdown. This is not a crash, but then just a slowdown. And another sign would be that if property prices continue to rise much faster than incomes. Now, when houses become unaffordable to most people, demand naturally will slow down. And at some point, sellers may end up having to lower their prices just to attract buyers. In Ghana's current property market, it doesn't seem like this will be the case on a large scale. There may be some isolated cases, but then nothing major. And nothing major because there's so much demand at the moment, whether we're looking at local buyers or those coming from the diaspora, there's so much demand at the market. So we really don't have much to worry about. We should pay attention to investor behavior. Now, if foreign investors or Ghanaians in the diaspora are beginning to pull back from the market due to uncertainty or some economic factors, it could significantly impact the market, especially the high-end segments of the market. Now, the high-end market is often the segment that stands to be most affected should there be a slowdown, because that's where most of the investment is going. And there's this question of whether we're seeing some form of an oversupply of prime properties or not. Now, if we see too much supply and then there's not enough buyers, prices may end up stagnating or even declining. And this could be a clear indication that the market is cooling off. And if the market is active and people are still buying, then I guess all is well and there's nothing to worry about. So what's next? What's the outlook of the market in Ghana? What can we look forward to? What can we expect? There are a few possible scenarios that I'd like us to consider. One possibility is a market correction, and in this case, prices would either stabilize or drop slightly as the demand slows down. And developers may end up having to shift their focus from high-end projects to more affordable housing to meet the real demand. And as this happens, investors would probably become more cautious, and this may lead to some balance in the market because at the moment there's so much activity on the high-end side of the market compared to the affordable side of the market. A more drastic scenario would be a market crash where property prices will drop significantly. And this could happen if too many investors pull out of the market at once, or if there's some economic downturn and probably some hyperinflation that will affect buyers' ability to afford homes. And in this case, developers may struggle to sell their properties, and those who overpaid for homes earlier could end up facing challenges when they want to resell them, and they may probably have to take a loss when they end up making a successful sale. The third possibility is sustained growth, but then in a more selective way. Instead of property pricing rising across the board, we end up seeing a case where the demand in certain areas may be strong, but then demand in some areas will be weak. Now, in this case, affordable housing and rental properties may continue to see some steady interest, while the high-end properties may take longer to sell. Some final thoughts. For buyers, the key is to be strategic. If you're purchasing a property to live in, you need to focus on the long-term value of that property rather than the short-term speculation. And if you're investing, you have to be very cautious. Don't simply buy on the assumption that the prices will go up or will keep going up. Do your research based on the location, the market rates, and also the forecasts that are grounded in data so that you can make the right decisions. Renting may also be a smart option if you're not sure about the direction of the market, or you're not sure how things will go based on, the way the market is reacting and acting and all that. For sellers and developers, it's crucial to price your properties realistically. Now, a shift in the market will imply that overpriced properties will sit unsold for a very long time. And as a developer, you may want to consider giving some attention to mid-range and affordable housing projects, as there's more demand for these projects, and the demand here is very, very strong. For investors, the most important thing is to stay informed. Now, the luxury markets may slow down, but then rental properties and affordable housing are still promising investment opportunities for you to explore. So pay attention to the market trends and also make decisions based on data and not just speculation. So then, are we in a boom phase or a bubble waiting to burst? As it stands today, Ghana's real estate market is at a turning point. And as to if we're going to experience a long-term growth or if we're heading for a slowdown, only time will tell. But then one thing remains certain. The people who truly understand the market will be the ones who make the smartest decisions. And those who are getting on board quickly are also going to be the ones who will be riding the high waves and smiling on their way to the bank. Would love to know what you think about this issue, so do well to drop your thoughts in the comments. And as always, stay informed, stay smart, and invest wisely. That wraps it up for today's episode. I'm Desmond Kafui, and this is Ghana Ground Up. As always, it's an honor to have you tune in to every episode we publish. And I want to say many, many thanks and do well to spread the word about the podcast so that many more people will get to see what we share. Do well to tune in to the next episode as well, and I'll do well to catch you on that.